Here we are then for part, is it 18? Losing track a little bit now, to be honest. I think it's part 18. I'm not going to start this week with anything about computers. I'm not even going to mention computers. In fact, I didn't even say the C word. It's not happening. Otherwise it'll all go wrong again. What we're going to do, we're going to get straight in the old Technicolor time machine. Back to 1995, end of May, on Wraysbury. There we are, we're there. Picture the scene. Sat in the bus stop, I just put back my second 39 pounder of the day. Tench blokes there, the Huns there. We sort of spent the day milling about, having a few beers. In the evening I cooked a great big curry, got the old wok out, done us a nice big curry on the bank. It was beautiful, beautiful weather. Winds coming in, quite strong but warm. It's just absolutely perfect really. I've caught two 39s. I'm on cloud nine. I'm absolutely over the moon with life in general. It's all good, all roses. The next day I done my normal, went over to Horton, you know, chest out, walking about. Did I mention I caught two 39 pounders? Did I happen to mention what I caught yesterday? That sort of thing, you know. You got to strut it, haven't you, sometimes? Anyway, on my walk around Horton, when I got back, I was sat by the lodge with a couple of the lads. And I looked over and like I say, you've got the lodge at Horton, and at the back you've got what's called Dell's Dungeon, which is like a caravan basically, where Dell, the head bailiff, lived. And then there's some other sort of outbuildings there, some fish holding tanks. That Horton was sort of the base of the group of lakes, the fishery, if you like. The tools were there, the fish were bred there, everything was sort of, 'cause it was the most secure of it. And I noticed a massive pile of materials there, swim building materials. There was a huge, great mountain of railway sleepers, you know, the big, what are they, 8, 9, 10 foot long, I don't know, the great big proper, hefty duty, like railway sleepers. Big pile of them there. They had a scaffold poles, there was all tools in the tool shed. And I suddenly thought, the Rocky Barge over on the North Lake, now that needs a sort of a makeover, if you like. Now the Rocky Barge was, I've described it before, but I'll do it again. The actual swim was right up high, almost in the woods, and you came to the edge and it dropped. You know, the water's a long way down, probably 10 foot down, and you had a small little path that went down, more like a slide than a path. And at the bottom there was a little rocky piece of land, which is why it's called the Rocky Barge, because the swim is rocky, and into your left there's a tiny indentation in the bank, and there was a, well, I don't know what they are, 20 foot, 30 foot are they? The big gravel barges, big old rusty gravel barge, had blown in there years before and had been tied to a tree and sort of half grown over with all the overhanging branches and that, so Rocky Barge. And I thought the Rocky Barge could do with a makeover. I'd like to be able to sit actually down the bottom in the swim, rather than be right up the top and have to do the death slide if you got a bite. So I saw all these materials there and thought, you know, they won't mind sort of improving the fishery. So I had a word and I said, yeah, crack on. But obviously I weren't going to put them in the tank, in the old Volvo. You know, put one railway sleeper in the back of that and the wheels would fall off, quite literally. But there in the car park was the perfect vehicle. It was a Bigfoot truck. Well, that's what we call them anyway. So a pickup truck with those stupid, dirty, great big wheels and the exhaust sticking out top or side or whatever it is, you know, proper bit of kit. And the guy that owned it was a guy called Simon. Well, his name was Simon, but we all called him Bigfoot because of his truck. So I thought, oh, I wonder if I can tap him up for a lift over the road with as much as I can get in the back of his Bigfoot truck. So I've gone round there, found his swim, sat down, I had a chat, and surprisingly he was bang up for it. He said, yeah, I'll do that, it'd be a laugh. He was a big bloke as well, so that'd be handy. So we've gone back round now. I can't remember, there was some of us. There was me, Bigfoot, and a couple of others. Don't know who it was. Anyway, we've manhandled, I think there was 8 of these railway sleepers. That's a lot of weight in the back of his truck. They were sticking out by miles. They're not very big, the back of those trucks, and they're made of like a metal checker plate, like a drain cover. They're really uncomfortable, those trucks. They really are. The seats have got no suspension. They're not made for a comfortable ride, you know. I think he had the crisscross seat belts and the bucket seats, and you know, got 2 different gear shifts and all sorts. It's very sort of industrial type vehicle rather than comfort vehicle. Anyway, we put these 8 sleepers in the back, and then we've put a bundle of scaffold poles, also the same length, 8 foot, whatever. Put them in the back, roped them all together, and driven them up. You sort of go out through Horton Village, turn left into Welly Road, up and over a big humpback bridge, which is where Sunnymeads is. The humpback is over the train line next to the station. And then you can go into the NatWest Sailing Club. Now, at this stage, the gates to the sailing club weren't padlocked. So we knew we'd actually be able to reverse right down onto this sort of concrete slipway that went into the lake. So where you launch a boat from. But it didn't go in sort of gradually all the way underwater. It went down like a slope, and then it dropped off into the water. So there was about a 2 foot drop down to the water. It sort of ended, if you like, a complete drop off. So I'm in the back of this truck with somebody else, and we're going over there, and it's proper uncomfortable. You know, it's down on the suspension with all this weight and bouncing, and we're trying to control all this stuff in the back. And we got round there, we got in through the NatWest. I said to him, just spin it round and reverse it down the slipway to the edge. And then we just push it in. I roped it all together. I thought there's a lot of wood there. That's going to float the scaffold poles. And we just push the whole lot into the lake, and then get in the boat and shoot this boat, tie a bit of rope to it and tow it across, because the Rocky Barge is exactly opposite the NatWest Sailing Club. And probably 400 to 500 yards. Yeah, let's say 400 yards. But it's dead opposite. And the wind was going across there as well. You know, that was the direction of the wind. So I thought it's going to be easy, really, this piss. So we reversed up in the Bigfoot truck. It's heavy, you know, we're pushing and pulling, and we've all got in the back. And eventually we got it to the point of no return, and we've sort of put our backs against the end of the truck and all giving it that. And whoa, it's all slid off. And the whole lot's gone in with a massive, great big splash and just gone straight on the bottom of the lake. It just sunk like a brick, or like a pallet of bricks. Hadn't really sort of thought it through properly. Railway sleepers are hardwood. Now hardwood, although it's buoyant, it will float, it's wood, it's not very buoyant. You know, it's so dense, there's no air in hardwood. I think a single sleeper would probably just about break the surface, but most of it would be under. But with a pack of scaffold poles on it as well, it weighed a bloody ton. So it literally just went down, boom, straight in the shit on the bottom. So, oh. Right, okay, this needs a rethink. Most of our rope that we'd had, because I'd snaggled loads of rope as well, I thought that would be coming handy for tying the sleepers to the poles and what have you. Oh, and we had a load of tools in there as well. I'd borrowed a sledgehammer, a saw, a lump hammer, all sorts. I've got a big bag of tools. But most of the rope, like I say, was making this so-called raft that didn't float. So we got the bits and pieces of rope and knotted them together that we had left, and it didn't go very far. It was probably about 8 foot of rope. So I said to Bigfoot, I said, reverse your truck up, like right to the edge. Like the great big back wheels are right on the precipice of the end of this concrete drop-off. We tie it to the towing hitch, and it should just about reach that I can just give it a half hitch round one of the ropes that's holding this bundle together, which is underwater by now. So he's reversed right up, and we're back a bit until he's right on the edge, you know, half the wheel hanging off and half the wheel on. And I'm reaching down, I've just about managed to get it. So I pulled it through the rope, giving it a bit of a hitch. I said, yep, done. So I've stood up in the back of the truck, held onto the side. I'm looking down, I'm like sort of, okay, and he's put it in gear. Bear in mind, like I said, it's got 2 gear sticks, and if I remember rightly, these things have lots of gears. You know, it's not like 4 or 5 gears. They have lots of gears forwards, lots of gears backwards, because they're made for climbing up mountains and whatever you're supposed to do with them. Anyway, he's in there and he's got it in gear, foot's down on the clutch, he's revving the nuts out of it. I said, give it a good old woof, and it'll pull it out of the mud, and we'll be able to get it up high enough to sort of cut the ropes off and take it all apart and start again. So forward, like sort of, you know, got it all tightened and that. And then he's gone, right. So he put it in the what he thinks is the correct gear for pulling out an awful lot of weight. He's revved the tits off of it, dumped the clutch, he's in reverse. I mean, it's a schoolboy error. Yes, there's a lot of gears involved, but it's his truck. He should know which ones are forwards and which ones are backwards. The thing's shot backwards. The wheels have gone off the precipice of this thing, clonked down. So the wheels are now mostly in the lake. In fact, the back of the truck's mostly in the lake. It's like this, off the edge of the concrete, blowing exhaust under the water, bubbling away. I'm hanging on, trying not to fall in. He's hit the brakes just in time that the whole truck didn't go in, but it was proper touch and go. It was like this. So then he's put it into a forward gear and crept it forward until the tyres are bit on the side of the concrete. And once he's got a bit of purchase on dry land again, he's pulled, and sure enough, all this pack, this raft, subsurface thing, has come out of the deck and sort of bashed up half up on the concrete, and we've cut it all free. Of course, we're all in stitches. He is mortified. He's so embarrassed, but we're all in stitches. So we cut it all free. And I said, the best bet we can do is float these railway sleepers across the lake and then carry the scaffold poles and all the tools around. So we've all sort of agreed that that's the only way we're going to get it across there. So we've cut them free. And like I say, when you just let them do their thing in the water, they're only just above the surface of the water, but the wind's going that way. So one by one we've shoved all these out into the North Lake, and they've all disappeared off. But of course, they don't take the route you want them to take. It's not it's not like an armada all following each other. One goes off that way, one spins round in the wind, goes off that way. And we've loaded up scaffold poles between two of us, across our shoulders. Someone else got the bag of tools, and we've walked right round. It's quite a long walk round, actually, around the top of the North Lake up to the Sunny Meads, along the railway bank. Then you go back past the lawns, up through the woods, up a big hill, and into the Rocky. I think one made it to the Rocky, and that was still round in the bushes. We had to wade in there and pull it out. I can't remember the numbers, but of the 8 that set sail, I think about 3 of them were ever recovered, 4 maybe at a push. But we've managed to drag them in, and then we've had to get them out. I mean, they're bloody heavy, these things, So we dragged them out into the Rocky. There's a little bit at the side by where the barge was, a little bit of flat land. And we've dragged them all up there, and we pulled down all the scaffold poles and what have you. And we thought about it, and we thought, you know what, I'm knackered. We're all knackered. It can wait. We'll do it next week. So we stashed the tools away in the bushes. Like made a nice little neat pile, threw some branches and all that over it, and left it there for the next week. Which, in reality, I think must have been about 12 months later. We did eventually build the swim, but it wasn't that day, it wasn't the next day, it wasn't even that year. But yeah, an absolute disaster, but hilarious. The look on his face, because he was looking through the back window of the little window of the truck across the flatbed. And when it went in, the look on his face was absolutely priceless. And 2 weeks later, he sold the truck and bought a Porsche. So I think that was the end of his off-roading. Into June, probably the first week of June or whatever, still beautiful weather. The weed had grown like mental on Wraysbury, like absolutely crazy. And there's lots of different sorts of weed. In any big pit, you get your milfoil, you get Canadian pondweed, silkweed, onion weed, and a lot of it depends on the sort of aggregate it's growing on. Milfoil like silt. If ever I find big areas of milfoil, it's not my favourite. I tend to avoid them because usually it grows out of black, horrible, smelly silt. Canadian tends to grow off of anything. Canadian's fine. But my favourite weed of the lot in a gravel pit is eelgrass. Now, eelgrass is, if you don't know what it is basically like very long single strands of grass. It just looks like grass. Bit sort of more tubular, maybe like big chives, if you like. Eventually, if it hits the top, it can flower in these poxy little sort of heads, and it bends over, so it still grows. It can hit the top, turn over, and keep growing, and then it flowers. It's not so good when it gets to that stage. But when it's subsurface, carp absolutely love eelgrass. And And I think a lot of the reason is eelgrass always seems to grow on the side of bars, and as the bar gets deeper, quite often, you know, like very often, you'll get a patch, the best patch of the bar, the sand at the bottom, that won't have the eelgrass on it. I suppose it's too fine for it to root, maybe. So if ever, you know, even if I'm plumbing a lake and I start pulling back eelgrass, I'll put a rod there. I don't mind fishing in eelgrass. It's quite sparse. It's not too dense. And there was an area right in the mouth of Bryant's Bay. So you come out of the Douglas Lane, the route. When you come into Douglas Lane car park, the swim on the left is the route nightmare, just because there's lots of routes. That's on the corner. And you go round the corner, and then you're at the bottom of the gardens in Bryant's Bay. And you've got I Dug the Pit bloke, and then you've got the Mad Dogs, then you've got the Shootists, and then a couple more, and then you've got Dutch bloke. But at the bottom of the Mad Dog's garden, there was a swim there, and out in front of there was this beautiful bed of eelgrass, and it was only, I don't know, 30 yards out, something like that. What happened? The bay's very, very deep, and it came up, and as it comes up the shelf towards the swim, the eelgrass had grown on the shallowest bit. But over the eelgrass on the slope was this lovely, lovely sand strip. You only had to have one look at it from the boat for a mask, and you just thought they've been there. You can tell it's all shiny, and you get little tiny white stones, little shiny, almost like you get in the bottom of an aquarium, you know. And quite often they're that shiny because they've been sucked in and blown out, and the fish have moved over them and displaced the silt. You can just tell when you see a spot like that. You know that they're visiting it. Anyway, I clocked this spot at the bottom of the Mad Dogs, and decided I was going to have a little go in there. The main problem with fishing anywhere near the Mad Dogs is the Mad Dog. I mean, I've said about it before, it was mental. It proper hated everybody and everything. Never stopped barking. You know, as soon as it see you there, against the fence. Fat Sam didn't give a monkey's about it. Absolutely, just completely ignored it. Which probably drove it to distraction, you know. But I was set up in this Mad Dog swim, got the boat, gone out there, and it was quite hard to fish because I was fishing over a wall of this eelgrass. So it was a case of getting your rigs down there, poking them into the sand a little bit, the leads, so they don't slide down the sandy slope, and then parting the eelgrass and pulling your line through, and then with a landing net pole, sort of pushing that down a little bit, you know, so everything was sort of hidden and perfect. In fact, I did take, it sprung to mind when I've done my notes for this, the back cover, this back cover shot on An Obsession with Carp of Fat Sam there in a lovely sort of orangey sunset, that photo was taken on this exact session that I'm now talking about. I remember taking it. She was just laid there out by the rods, and it looked beautiful with like the reflected sun coming through the water and across her face. And I took that photo this day I'm just about to talk about. So I've sat up in there for, you know, I think I did about 2 or 3 nights in there. And I hadn't seen fish, but I knew from the bottom that they were visiting it. And sure enough, I think the first night I had a bite in the evening and had one of these little stockies, one of the funguses I think it was. And then the next morning I had an absolute ripper from there. Hooked into this fish, and the line had sort of trapped in the eelgrass, so it was going out and then it was going off at a right angle, and I was having a bit of a mare with it, to be honest. And I got it halfway in, it was a proper one, and the hook pulled. So I was proper gutted about that. But put everything back out there, I was sure they'd keep coming back. And the next day or the day after, the last day I did in there, I had a 27-pound common. Now, that was my biggest common from Wraysbury 1. There wasn't a lot, in the way of big commons in there. You know, a 27-pounder was a good fish. And it was a fish that became known as the floppy tail common. As you'll see from the photos, it's got the big hangy down tail. It's an absolutely beautiful fish. A proper rare one, you know, didn't come out very often at all. Not that many of them did. Like I've said before, and I'll probably say again, that 90% of the captures were 6 fish, you know, like your Mary's mate, Malins, Mary's gang, they were Steve had told us that, Steve Alcott, right at the beginning, and he was bang on right. They did do most of the captures. So to get something, like this, it weren't a proper odd one, but, it was rare enough. So it was a major, major result. And then the next session, the weed hit the surface. And I don't know what happens, what the change is then, but when eelgrass hits the surface, the whole thing's not quite as appealing. And the next time I went out and looked, the shiny, lovely, beautiful sand had gone dark, where you get fresh silt settling on it, and the fish haven't been going over it. They've not been blowing it off. They've not been sucking it clean. And the area just sort of looked dead. But just that little tiny window of opportunity, found the weed, hit it bang right, had 3 bites, and ended up with a proper old Wraysbury original common. The other place I was actually seeing fish around this time, beginning of June, and seeing them often. There weren't many, although it's massive, Wraysbury. There aren't many areas with a boat that you can't fish, you can't get to. Yes, they may be 250 yards out or whatever, but there were very few areas where you couldn't actually put a bait. But one of these areas was the snags in the mouth of Dredger Bay. I'll use the photo again that I used last week to show you. Looking across from the route from a drone, you've got the central island. You can't actually see the dredger, it's behind the island there, right in the middle. So if you imagine just over that central island is the dredger. You've got a left-hand channel that goes in from the South Lake, and a right-hand channel that goes in from the South Lake. Now halfway up that right-hand channel, on the edge of the big island on the right there, is a big group of snags. There's a huge, great fallen tree that hangs out, and it's all dead branches and stuff underneath. And you can actually get on that tree and shuffle out and sit. You can get perch in like a V of the branches. You can sit out there comfortably for as long as you like. Take your fags out there with you and maybe a can of drink or whatever, and just sit there. And the fish come in right underneath your feet. I mean, like proper close. You can see every scale on them. And they know they're completely safe in there, and it's just such a good viewing spot in there. It's amazing. The best way to get to these snags was to actually row out and moor up off the end of the right hand island, which was a huge island. We used to call it something like, I think it was 10-acre island or something like that. It was massive. Not only did it form the side of the Dredger Bay, if you followed it round, it created the finger bays. It was the backdrop from the railway section, like the doctors and all of the Party Point, and that was the trees and the island that you saw. And from the Douglas Lane, it was the back of the Douglas Lane swim, Douglas Lane Point. So it was a huge island. I used to just row out and get on the end, climb on the bank, tie off the boat, and then you'd walk along a little path through the woods on this island, and we've got a siren. You get sirens around here in the country. Something must be kicking off. And then, follow this little path, and then you go up this real steep bit of the island, and then you'd look down, it dropped right away, and at the bottom were the fallen trees. And that's why they've fallen, because obviously it's a steep bank, and there's been a landslide at some stage, and all these trees have gone down and fallen in. And from up the top, you could see if there were fish at home or not, and if there were, you'd quietly make your way down, get on this big sort of limb that went out flat to the water, make yourself comfortable and sit there and watch the fish. And like I say, spent loads of time watching them there. If you followed the contour of the island round, only not very far, a few rod lengths further up, past another little bit of snags, it then bellies in and creates a little bay which you can fish from the left-hand Dredger Bay swim. Now this little bay is quite shallow, 4 or 5 foot deep, silty, and that was the home of the fungus mirrors. They didn't really go very far. They went in there in their little group and huddled in the corner. There was a few little branches and that in the corner, and basically didn't come out. Wraysbury was too big for them, so they used to hide in there, and you could see them in there all the time. I remember one particular day I was there, and I'd been sitting on the limb looking at the better fish underneath, and I see a couple of half decent fish, oddens, sort of mid-20s, the ones you really, really wanted. and they came out the snags, and they very rarely went in this bay, the better ones. They didn't really mingle the funguses and the others. And they've gone round the corner and they've disappeared off to this bay, and then a better fish has come through, like sort of one of the known ones, and he's gone round the corner and gone in. So I've got off the snags, walked round there, got right in the bottom of this bay, and there was a huge floating weed bed sort of on the mouth of the bay, huge, great weed bed. And then this side, the island side, it was quite clear, but it was always quite silty. There was a couple of little clean patches, but not an awful lot. And I'm there behind the bushes, sort of looking down, and sure enough, I can see, I can't remember which fish they were, but measles or free scale or proper oddon or whatever, and a couple of better ones out there as well. Mary's gang members in this bay, in the sort of Fungus Bay, if you like, Fungus Mirror Bay, milling about. I thought, that's got to be worth a shout. They're out the snags, so I've gone and got my gear from wherever I've stashed it, put it all in the boat, and I've rowed through the gap past the snags. And I've gone through onto this Dredger Bay swim. It weren't the most comfortable swim to fish, this Dredger Bay swim. It was a high swim, and then there was a big metal girder across it, and then it dropped down where someone had tried to make a swim years ago, but it had all collapsed into the water. So again, it was just a patch of stones, really, a bit like the Rocky Barge. But you could just about get a brolly and sides in there. Then from there you're looking out, and you've got the dredger in the middle of the bay slightly to your right. You've got the island, the 10-acre island to your left. You've got another channel out. There's channels going in and out of the Dredger Bay everywhere. And then you've got this island going away from you on your left, and then you've got the bay that goes in where I'd seen the fish, and then it comes out, snags, channel through into the other half, into the South Lake. So it's probably about 70 yards, something like that, 80 yards, whatever, into this bay. It's not very castable. There's a big, just before it bellies in, there's a big tree that comes out. So it's a boat job to get a rig right into the bottom of this bay. It wasn't fished that often, to be honest, because, like I say, you only got these little ones in there most of the time. So I've gone out there in a boat with a rig. Now, I didn't want to boat over the fish, because I knew they'd be gone, Shallow water, me in a boat, paddling about on top of them. So I've got up to the back of this weed, and it's quite hard to see exactly what's going on. I'm lower down now, and I can't get the angle through the water. So I thought, I've got a genius idea. So I've come out in the boat, rowed to the right, and moored up against the dredger. And I've got off on the dredger, which was rare. I didn't really, there was no reason to get on the dredger very often. But I climbed out on the dredger, made my way up onto the roof. I think I might have stopped in the wheelhouse for a little while and just pretended I was driving it, like you would. Got up on the roof, and from the roof I could see perfectly. I'm in a proper elevated position. I've got the sun behind me, and I'm looking in. I can see the weed. I can see just about make out the fish moving about behind. And there's one piece there which I'd seen from the island, which was clear, like yellowish. And the rest of it was just silty, but no weed. So I'd seen it up close. I knew what I was looking for, but now I'd identified where the spots were. So I got back in the boat, went up to the start of the weed, and I knew that if I was sort of just off the green bush, short of the dead tree, that sort of thing, I'd be on the clear bit, and if I was bloody low, I'd be on the silt bit. So I put 2 rigs out, and as they've gone down through the clear water, I can see the boilie going down, and the lead stopped, and I actually see the bait settle. So I could just about, it's a white dot, but I could see that both baits are presented. Pinged a few baits out, let the line back, got back in the swim, had the rod tips up high, so it was out and over the weed and in. All set, perfect. Got my little leads out there, my long nylon hook links, big fish in the area. Couldn't really fail, could I? So I sat there all evening, all afternoon, all evening, thinking it's going to go. And every now and again you'd see a bat come up or one and roll out there, right tight in this bay, tight against the island. I mean, it's going to go any second. So hovering over the rods, didn't go. Eventually it's bedtime, gone to bed, woke up, bang on first light, sat there, just amazed that I haven't had a bite. They're still out there. I can still see the odd disturbance. I'd heard a couple in the night bosh out as well. just like sort of pulling my hair out, thinking, why? How can I not have had a bite? I mean, that not much depth of water. The fish are all over it. They must be feeding out there. They've got to be feeding out there. So anyway, I sat there till about, I don't know, let's say 10 o'clock in the morning as it started to warm up. And I've seen the backs hit the surface, and they've come round the back of the weed bed, and they've gone round the corner, and they've gone back in the snags. And I thought, I've got to go and have a look. You know, they're not there now. So I got in the boat and I've rowed out there. I've left the rigs out there. Taken one rod with me in case I needed to replace it. So I'm sort of rowing and winding, but trying not to move the lead. Rowing and winding, rowing and winding. I've gone right over the weed. I thought they're not there, so I can't spook them. I want to have a proper look at what's going on. I got out there. There's not a single boilie, right? Apart from my two, which are no longer on the spots where I put them. One's thrown off to the left and one's thrown off to the right. They've moved them somehow. They've eaten all the freebies. The spots are looking churned over. You know, even the silty ones, you can tell it's different, lighter coloured silt, bits displaced. The shiny bits even shinier. And I thought, I've been completely and utterly done here. So I don't know, the 1 ounce leads maybe, I don't know. Somehow they've got away with it. Bear in mind my line's on the weed as well, so I'm not going to get an indication unless I get a proper bite, proper run. So I pulled both the rigs out, changed them over to 3 ounce lead, shorter hook links. Like I say, there's no fish here now, so I thought I'd do it properly. I've gone over the weed, right over into the bay, and I've put the bigger leads down and I've buried them in the bottom with the landing net handle, both of them, and made sure they've rammed in. There's no way they can move them. Pulled it back, sunk the line through the weed, set it all up. But right now, if they come back, now I'm fishing properly, 100%. And sure enough, in the evening, I see a couple more come out of the snags and come round. And just before dark, a couple of fish came in from the Finger Bays and came through the channels. This is new fish coming into the area. And I see them crystal clear because they're right next to you when you're in that swim. And one was Mary. The other one I couldn't identify, but it was a big fish as well. So, the gang's all here, if you like. I know there's big uns out there anyway, coming out the snags. I've seen Mary and somebody else come in from the left. It was absolutely spot on. And sure enough, as soon as it got dark, I could hear them out there going over in this bay. A situation I've not been in before in this particular area. And that's always a big bonus in my mind. Fish are doing something unusual in a different area, then they're there to feed. I was definitely going to catch one. So sometime in the wee small hours, I always say it's 3 o'clock in the morning, but I never, you don't check the time, do you? But it's always 3 o'clock in the morning. So at 3 o'clock in the morning, the one on the hard spot, the left-hand rod's just gone, buckled over, and it's away. I've hooked into this fish, and it's trying to get under the snags. It's trying to get under the island. I'm giving it some. It's not pulling particularly hard, but it's very enthusiastic. I'm thinking, don't be one of the funguses. Please don't be one of the funguses. Anyway, he's come in and I've scooped him in the net. Knew it wasn't a big one. And I've had a look and it's a common. And I recognised him straight away. 19 pound it was, this fish. Ancient old thing. Scales missing. It's a proper old Wraysbury original fish. And it was one that got caught. I knew of 2 other captures of it. Like I say, small amount of fish, the bulk of the captures. I don't think he's ever going to grow, but at least he was a proper one, but he wasn't sort of the proper ones I was after. But I was sort of chuffed with him anyway. But he'd done the damage, In that sort of situation, you're going to get one bite, and the rest are just going to go woof and probably never come back to that area again. I didn't even put that rod back out. I left the other rod out there, and in the morning I sort of knew. I boated out there as close up to the weed and looked, and there was nothing. Even the funguses had gone. The place was absolutely devoid of carp. So I'd gambled, I'd played my hand, and I'd had a bite. I'd done it. It happened. You just can't odds sometimes what picks it up, can you? So I packed it all away, chucked it in the boat, and thought maybe they've gone through. They've gone through one way or the other. They're going to be either in the Fingers or the South Lake. If they've gone past the snags, they're in that part of the South Lake. If they've gone round the Fingers, they're still in the South Lake. Or sitting in one of the back bays of the Finger Bays. So I packed it all in the boat, just standing up with the oars. It was a nice long oar, you could sort of punt about. And if you stand in a boat, you get a really good view through crystal clear water. You know, you can see right down, you can see the features. I mean, Wraysbury one, when it's clear, is mentally clear. Sometimes it's like there's no water. You know, you see a fish come through and it's like it's suspended in space, if you like. And you can see all the stones and the tin cans and the scooters and the shopping trolleys on the bottom and everything else. You know, it can be amazing when it is clear, and it was clear this day. So I stood up and I'm sort of rowing myself, oaring myself through the Finger Bays. I've gone out round the little peninsula to the left. Now the Finger Bay's got an island down the middle of it. So you know, either go on the inside, around the outside. So I've gone round the outside behind the island, which is one of them areas you can't really get to from anywhere. But maybe they're sat up round there, but they weren't. There was nothing. You could see all the bottom looked beautiful, but there was nothing there. And I've come down, and then you go through another little gap, and out past the party point into the railway section of the South Lake. But just before you do, there's another little tiny peninsula on the island that forms a tiny little bay. It's a dear little bay that's completely cut off from everything that we call the Poets Bay. And it's so called because one day I was walking around this area, and I found a guy on the end, or came across a guy, find him, we weren't lost, on the end of this little tiny peninsula opposite this bay. So he wasn't on the island, he was on the land, but he was on this little tiny peninsula. And he was a proper dude, you know, long, straight hair, cord jacket, I wouldn't say hippie-ish, but collegey, you know. And he was sat under a tree. It looked beautiful with the sun coming through, dappled light and that. And he was sat under the tree reading a book of poems. And I just thought, how cool is that? You know, you're miles from everybody, and you just sat there chilling out, reading your poetry. So that become the Poets after that, the Poets Point and the Poets Bay. So anyway, I'm paddling around, and there was no reason ever to go into the Poets Bay, and it was thick weed, right to the surface. As I went past, I thought, I wonder, you know, that would be a proper sanctuary for carp. You know, you might get an oddun in there, or a couple of odduns in there that you know, just get away with it, hardly ever get seen. That's a sort of proper hiding spot. And I just thought, I never look in there, so I'm going to look in the Poets Bay. When we say bay, you know, we're talking like the size of a living room. It's not big at all. So I've gone in there really quietly in case they're under this weed. I'm going in there really quietly, standing up. And the bank, the sort of island bank, is probably level with my head when I'm standing up. It's quite a steep bank. And I've gone in there real quiet. And I've heard this screech, this proper tortured squeal, if you like, from right here, somewhere in the bush, right next to me. Something's getting it. Something's dying. Horrible noise. So I sort of stopped, and I'm looking in the bush to see what it is. And I can hear sort of breathing, laboured breathing, if you like, dying breaths with this whining by now it's gone down to. Something's got something and it's strangling it or biting it to death. You know, it wasn't frenzied, but it's got it. And I can hear this sort of whimpering and death throes. Someone should get that feeling, don't you? You know, like if somebody's watching you, or if somebody else is there, you haven't seen them, but you just get that sixth sense. So I'm concentrated on this bush, and I suddenly thought, there's something there. And I've looked round, and he hasn't seen me. There's a fox, Mr. Fox. He's sat there, also staring at this bush. So he's on this elevated, like a tiny piece of lawn, you know, 10 foot by 2.5, 3 foot, little bit of clearing with bushes all around it. He's on one side of the clearing there, staring at this bush. I'm in the boat in the water with the bank up this high, also staring at this bush, and we're both very interested as to what's going on in this bush. So I haven't made a sound. Just stood there watching, waiting for something to happen. Suddenly the fox has gone whew, and sprung straight into the bush. As he's crashed into the bush, a stoat has come flying out of the bush at me almost, you know, at the edge of the drop off into the water where I was stood in the boat. seen me, gone flying along the bank that way. The fox has come out and chased him, nearly got him, but the stoat was a bit more nimble. The stoat's gone up the bank and disappeared. The fox, who still doesn't seem to know I'm there, has turned round, trotted in the bush, and come out with the rabbit that the stoat was killing. So he's got this half-dead, blood-dripping rabbit. So he's nicked his dinner. And the fox has trotted off with the rabbit. The stoat's disappeared up the island. And I'm just sat there thinking, wow. That was pretty amazing, you know, all within a few feet of my face. But because I was in the water, they were busy with their game of death, they hadn't seen me at all. Yeah, proper little spectacle that was. There was no carp, but it was worth it just for that. Anyway, I carried on through, I came out the Poets, went through the party point. Like I say, as you come round the railway section into the South Lake, the first major swim you come to is the Douglas Lane Point. And Tench Bloke was set up. I knew he was set up in the Douglas Lane Point. So I've gone in round the side, pulled up, gone in there, cup of tea and chat and what have you, talk about what's going on and what we caught and what we haven't caught. And he said he'd seen quite a few fish coming through the gap, the back of the snags where I'd been fishing. And generally in the South Lake, they were starting to use the South Lake a lot more at this stage as it was warming up. So I sort of came in close under his rods in the boat and carried on up the way a little bit. And from the Route Nightmare, like I say, you can see up these gaps. And I thought what I'm going to do is I'm going to fish. There's a swim there we called the White Fence because it had a white fence in it. And it's sort of in between the Douglas Lane Point and the Route Nightmare. It's only a tiny little swim just in the woods there, and a little white like scaffold tube fence, just 2 bars of it, all half fallen down. Someone had painted them white hundreds of years before. But it looks straight up the gap between the 2 islands at the snags where these fish were using, where I was watching them. And I thought, you know, if they haven't gone the way I've just looked for them, which they hadn't, then they'd probably just drop back in the snags and they're coming in and out of this way into the South Lake. Quite a long way, sort of 150 yards to there was a little tiny gravel bar out there just short of the gap, just short of the entrance, and it was tiny, it was right deep down. You could only see it when it was really clear, but I had seen it like when it was crystal and I'd got a Kinder Egg out there. So I thought I'm going to go in the White Fence and I'm going to drop 2 of them out there by the egg. So I've gone out there and looked down. I can just about make out the spot. You know, you lower your rig down and you can see your boilie getting tinier and tinier and tinier, and then you can just see it stop sinking and you think, oh, perfect. Because if you weren't on it, you was in thick weed. So I set these 2 up, got them back, got them all set up. The bushes started crashing behind me. I thought, oh, here comes Tench Bloke. But it wasn't. It was little Robbie from Horton, just come over for a visit. You know, had a result really, because he'd come over to see me and have a cup of tea, and I could have been anywhere. I could have been miles away, in which case he probably wouldn't have bothered, but he'd pulled into the car park and there I was, you know, 50 yards away. So he's come over and had a chat and was telling me how I was going to catch the big fella that night, and I was quite confident, to be honest. I knew I was in a good spot. Anyway, off he's gone. He hasn't got out of Douglas Lane, and my right hand rod's away. Bosh, hit into this fish. Nothing much going on. Got it in, and it was a little stocky. I think it was one of the little comments. I may not have said at this stage, but they being, you know, Leisure Sport, whoever it was, had put in some small comments, and they were about £10, £12, something like that. At the time, we didn't know how many had gone in. It turned out to be quite a few. I mean, somebody said it was 100. Other people said it was 50. I don't really know, but at the time we only thought it was a handful, but it wasn't, because, you know, I'd just caught one, and sure enough, about 2-3 hours later, the other rod was away, and I caught one on that as well. So this was going to be a bit of a problem, especially as I couldn't get the baits back out there in the dark, because I'd never see them going down. They weren't worth just, you know, even though I had an egg out there marking the spot, the casing, if I'd gone out there and just dropped it next to it, the chances of it fishing were quite slim, or being presented were quite slim. So I'd had these 2 stockies, and I'd started to realise that they were going to become a little bit of a problem, to be honest. But anyway, so I just put rigs in the butt rings, threw them on the thing. But I'm just going to get some kip and then I'll get up nice and early, say 4 o'clock in the morning, put them out there, start again. So I got into bed. Before I've even got to sleep, I'm laying there and I can hear this crackling and popping and a fire noise. You know, there's a specific noise, isn't there, when something's burning. And I can lay there and hear it and it's getting louder and louder. And then Tench Bloke's come down into my swim. And he said, what is that over there? He said, there's a, you know, because he was out on a point, he could see further round than me. I couldn't see round the corner into Bryant's Bay and all of that. He said, it's proper glowing over there, something's on fire. So I've got up and we've walked along to the Route Nightmare and oh Jesus, we've looked across and it wasn't in Bryant's Bay, it was Bryant's Point, and Bryant's Point was on fire. I mean, properly going. There were 30-foot flames coming off the end of the point, you know, where I caught Mary from, where Phil caught Mary from, the main swim. It seemed to be just on the side of it. Huge, great big flames going up. You could smell it when you got to the route and you were 200 yards away across water. Bits of ash going up and it, roaring it was. You could hear it popping and crackling and going ahead. So I said, we've got to go and put that out, mate. So we ran along the sort of back of the gardens, past the mad dogs. When we got to Dutch Bloke stood out the back of his fence, like on our bit, you know, on the lake, looking very sooty and dirty. And his very first words were, I didn't do it. It was like, I said, no one said you did, Dutch Bloke. He said, I didn't. He said, I've seen it, you know, I've seen the fire. He was all sort of blah, 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 and stuttery. He said, but I didn't light it. Like, you obviously did. You know, it's the first thing a kid says, isn't it? It wasn't me. I said, well, you can come and help us put it out at the very least. So we worked our way around there. We got down the end of the point, and it's scorching when we got close. And as soon as we got there, we thought, this is Dutch Bloke's work. There was a new swim on the side of the point, which just happened to face his garden. It was right near the end swim, but it was just on the right, and it had been hacked out. And it had all been logged up. You know, lots of trees had come out, and it had all been nicely logged up, and you could see where someone had tried to make a fence bit round the back to make a proper little swim. And he'd obviously had a fire site in the middle to burn the bits and pieces. Gone back to his house, and it had spread. Spark had come out, set fire to the log pile, set fire to everything, set fire to the trees. The whole bloody place was alight. So we got some branches and started beating it out. We started kicking the logs into the lake and scooping up water and throwing it over it, and dirt over the top of the fire. It took up forever. We were black by the time we'd finished. And all the time, Dutch Bloke's going, I didn't do it. I didn't light it. The next weekend, about I don't know, a few days later, we've turned up, and Dutch Bloke's little nephew is fishing in the swim. You know, as if we needed any further proof. He's obviously made this swim for his nephew to fish and wants it where he can look across and keep an eye on him or whatever. Yeah, bang on view from bottom of Dutch Bloke's garden. But yeah, we nearly lost the whole Douglas Lane Point that night. It was a nightmare. Morning after the big fire, I sat round there with Tench Bloke came round to me and we were sat there having a chat. Now Tench Bloke didn't seem to ever work. I think he was on the dole or whatever. And I was working less and less by now, a couple of days a week, I suppose, self-employed, Artexing. And I came to a decision. It was, like I say, beautiful weather. The forecast for the summer was lovely. I was having a whale of a time down at Wraysbury. I actually loved it there. And I thought, you know, I live in a shared house with 4 other blokes. So everything's divided into 5. I'm never there anyway. I think they'd moved me into the little room by now. I'd lost my claim on the main room. I was in the box room because I was never there. I had very little in the way of outgoings. I didn't actually really need to work as such. So I decided I was going to have the summer off. I was just going to be a bank tramp. I mean, a lot of people think I fish all the time anyway. I really don't. You know, my normal fishing is 2 nights a week for half the year and 3 nights a week in spring and autumn. That's my normal angling now. But life's different now, isn't it? Got family, got responsibilities. At that time, I didn't have a family. I didn't have any responsibilities, you know. I had my dog to keep, that was it, and myself. So we thought we'd kick off this new life with a big session in the Douglas Lane car park in the Route Nightmare, and there was another swim right next to it called the Little Route. So Tench Blake packed up, I packed up, and it's only a little way, you know, the other side of the car park, and we set up in the Route Nightmare and the Little Route because the fish we use in this area a lot. Like I said, they've been coming through the channels up the other end of this big section of the South Lake, past the burning point, was Mary's Point and the Sailing Club, and it was a vast piece of water between, and the fish could be seen out there a lot, showing in the morning. But it'd also been coming close in to this Route Nightmare. There's a lot of features up 50 yards and under, and the fish have been coming in here quite a lot, and a lot of these little stockies, which we were starting to realise there were more and more of. So we decided, I don't know whether we tossed a coin or whatever, but Tench Blake went in the Route, which was the main swim, and I went in the Little Route right next door. Set up all our kit, decided to go home and sort my life out really, and return ready for a summer of adventure, if you like. I mean, we needed stuff, you know, we needed bait. I knew I had a couple of sacks of hemp home and some pellet, mixed particles, all dry. I was going to get all the bait out of the freezer, air dry it on the bank, get some more pots and pans, and we were going to start by, you know, setting up and doing a long session in the Route Nightmare. That's not the way I fish. I don't fish like it now. I didn't fish like it then. I didn't fish like it before. But it's the perfect swim, and it became like the party swim, if you like, because obviously people turn up, and you've got two bivvies there, a little table, and the cookers are out, and the portable fridge thing, and everything, and people that come down. We had some good old socials in that swim. But before all this could kick off, like I say, Tench Blake started fishing. I got set up. We had a chuck about. There was a lovely little hump just to the left of where Tench Blake was in the actual route, right close in. In fact, you could climb up the tree and you could see down. You could see it glowing down there, and the odd fish moving over it. So his spots were quite close in, very close in. Mine, I think, were about 50, 60 yards. There was a couple of little humps out there, so I marked all of them, got everything ready, put what bait I had in the swim, shot off home to sort of get my affairs in order before retiring for a few weeks or the rest of the summer or whatever. Didn't have any plans at all, just thought, sod it, I'm going to give it a go. So I've gone home, sorted my life out, done whatever I had to do, all the rubbish that comes with home life. You know, that's how I thought about it at that time. I just thought, you know, I've got two different worlds going on here, and I'm enjoying the Wraysbury world a lot more. And I can't remember if it was that day or the next day. Everything I needed is in the motor. I think it was the next morning. Put it all in the Volvo. Me and Fat Sam, off we set, you know. Pulled over after about 30 miles to top it up with brake fluid and clutch fluid and this fluid and the other fluid. To carry on. It was just like, that was a constant with this motor. It was a heap of shit. It really was. Anyway, I got halfway down the M25 and it's just ground to a halt. Everything has just stopped. There's traffic as far as you can see, and it ain't going nowhere. There's lorry drivers getting out of lorries and walking up and down. There's people on the hard shoulder. I think, oh no, this is a nightmare, you know. Weather's perfect. I just want to be back at the lake. I've only got 30 miles to go or whatever. Anyway, as it turned out, I had the dubious honour of being part of one of the longest tailbacks the M25's ever known, and that's, you know, that's saying something. A chemical lorry had gone over. We found this out a bit later. One of the coppers walking up and down the hard shoulder told us a chemical lorry had gone over further along and spilt all these chemicals. So they had to do a proper clean-up before anyone could go through. I can't remember how long we were there. It was hours. You know, and when you're sat in the scorching heat on the M25 for, you know, like 2-3 hours or whatever it might have been, that's a long time. The car, I couldn't leave the car running, you know, to get any sort of, I didn't have aircon, but even to get the blowers going, because as soon as, in an old banger, if you're not moving, if you've got no cold air in the front of the radiator, they just overheat straight away. So I've turned the motor off, it's got hotter and hotter in there, so I thought it's far too hot for Fat Sam. So I've got her out. she's ended up curling up and going to sleep in the shade of a little van that was next to me. So she's basically in the middle of the M25 on the tarmac, fast asleep, couldn't give a monkeys. I popped the back up, put the old bit of wood underneath, keep the door up, and got my cooker out. I could do with a cup of tea. So I got the old Coleman's, pumped that up, got the kettle on, started making a cup of tea. Of course, that gets interest straight away. By now, people are wandering around everywhere. A woman from a car next door came up and said, "Oh," she said, "excuse me." She said, "I don't suppose you've got any spare water?" She'd got a young child in the car, don't know how big, but a small one, rugrat, seriously crying and overheating and whatever. I said, yeah, no problem. Have you got anything to put it in? I've only got 2 cups that are like absolutely manky. So yeah, she's got a little Tommy Tippy cup or whatever. I've given her a bit of water. And then I've got chatting to a guy next door, and I said, "Do you want a cup of tea?" Yeah. So I made him a cup of tea, and then I made some girl in front of us a cup of tea. And it was just like a calf in the end. I just stood there at the back of this Volvo in the middle of the M25, just making tea for absolutely everybody. Yeah, it was very bizarre. And like I say, we were there for 2 or 3 hours. And eventually, they've cleared the chemical spill. We all jumped back in. Off we've gone. By now I'm gagging to get to the lake. So I've come off the M25, gone through the village, into the Douglas Lane. I'm flying up the Douglas Lane. I've got to the end and there's this rusty old metal gate. It was open, Tench bloke was there, he was milling about doing something or other. It's quite rutted as you go through, as you come off the road, as you can imagine, onto earth, there's piles and that. I came flying through there far too fast in the Volvo, donked down like that. The back box of the exhaust had hit the end of the concrete road. The noise, Volvos are not quiet motors, they're really not quiet motors when they're in working order. When you've just torn a big hole in the back box of the exhaust, it was like a tractor. I was like, oh, for God's sake, can it get any worse? So I just roared across the field, deafening. Pulled in behind me, bivvy. Tench bloke shut the gate, come over. I said, just whatever, don't even mention it. Got my rods out. I thought we'll sort that out later. So I got the rods out, had a couple of cups of tea or a couple of beers or whatever. I think this was, it was a Friday. I know it's a Friday because Phil turns up in a bit. Anyway, after a while, I thought we might as well have a look at the exhaust. So I've gone under the motor and had a look, and sure enough, the big box at the back had got a big tear in it. It was so rusty, you could probably done it with, punched a hole in it. So I thought, if I take that back box off, I can then go to breakers or whatever. Or I had mates around there who had various mates who had garages, whatever. I can get a back box from somewhere. Don't matter if it's the right one, any old back box will do. So I said to Tench bloke, "Come on, we're right next to the rods, give us a hand, we'll get this off the back." So there was some sort of a U-clamp thing or whatever, and we'd managed somehow to beat it to death with a bank stick and get the bloody thing off. But the back box wouldn't come off. It was like just years of being on there. It sort of welded itself on. I said, I don't know, let's get the cooker, one of the Coleman's underneath it, pump that up like good, light that, and then we can heat it right up and expand the metal and get the back box off. So that was what we was doing. Me and him was both under the motor. It was scorching under there. We got the thing going. It's getting glowing now, and we're whacking it with bank sticks and bits of brick and whatever. And then the cooker starts dying. We ain't got any more petrol. We forgot about getting petrol. Just then I heard a car coming across the grass, and I could see the wheels, and then I see a pair of slippers get out and sort of cream cords. I thought, oh, that's Tomo. He's come wandering over. What are you doing under there? So, told him, explain what was going on. So we ran out of petrol. Have you got any petrol? He said, I have. He said, I've just bought a brand new petrol can and filled it up. Oh, yeah, can we borrow it? And he's like, a little bit dubious, because me and Tench bloke are the worst for destroying anything. Anyway, in the end, he's relented, and he's given it to Tench bloke. He said, I'm going off to find the pug. It's what he always said. He said, he said, it'll be pugging about somewhere, his little saying. So he went off to find the pugging. Last thing he said to Tench bloke was, look after the can, it's brand new. Kiss of death. Absolute kiss of death. pulled the cooker out, topped it up, done it. I've gone under there. I said, you go and make a cup of tea. So he's gone, filled up the other cooker, because obviously we've used all the petrol. I'm under there, got the thing going, got it hot, clonk, 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 and it started to give, and I started to twist it, and I've given it a big bang, and it's actually come off perfect. As it's come off, there's a dirty great big whoa! I'm thinking, shit, what have I done? Come up, crack my head on the underside of the motor, and I can hear yelling and screaming from outside at the back of the swim. So I've shooted out from under the motor, and look, the tench bloke's on fire, basically, or in fire, I should say. I don't know what he's done. I think he must have topped the cooker up, yeah, put the brand new can of petrol down with no lid on, lit the cooker's woofed a little bit, probably spilt some petrol, it's gone up and in the can. The can's now gone up, so he's got a gallon of petrol, flames spewing out the top of it, the cooker's on fire, all the ground's on fire. It's just a nightmare. He's trying to stomp it all down. I think he's kicked the can over, so the more petrol's come out. It's just literally a blaze. It's hilarious. He's got his little white trainers or black trainers or whatever, and he's stomping about trying to put it out, and the more he stomps in it, the more petrol he gets on his shoes, and the more he's alight. There was a little bit of carpet on the side of the swim. I threw that over the can and managed to put the bulk of it out, starve it of oxygen. And I just left him dancing around in this pool of fire, cracking up. Anyway, by the time Phil got back from his first sort of half a circuit looking for the pugging about, I was taking the carpet off. Phil's brand new bright green petrol can is all black and charred and melted. The lid's never going back on. All the spout ends all just dripping with molten plastic. Absolute total and utter write-off. Being as it was, I say, Friday afternoon, we decided, I got the back box off the motor. I wasn't going to spend the weekend trying to get a new one for it. I wasn't in any hurry to go anywhere anyway. I had an appointment on the Monday, I think it was. I decided for the first time in my life I was going to sign on. Almost embarrassed to say it really, wouldn't dream of it nowadays, but I thought I would. But anyway, it was Friday. We decided just to have the weekend fishing. So we put out a load of bait. We're permanently boiling now. We're boiling up hemp and particles and whatever, and mixing it with, we had a proper bait station going on. Air drying the boilies that we had in sacks in the trees, chopping them up, mixing up big buckets of everything we could get our hands on. If anyone was going, we'd have their bait. We wanted to put loads of bait in and see what happened. And what happened was stockies. It was about this time that we realised, or someone told us, that there was definitely over 50 had gone in, maybe even 100. But we sort of sussed this because I think the first night we had 4 each. The odd mirror, but mainly commons, and all about 10 to 12 pounds. They were a bloody nightmare. As soon as you put bait in the water, they'd just come in. You could sit up the tree in Tench Blake Swim and see them. Literally bait it up and you could see them coming out over the white slope of this little bar, just eating absolutely everything. So we had 2 days, I think it was, the Saturday and the Sunday, of just catching these stockies one after another. And then it went off the boil straight away. By Monday morning, it was almost like they'd wised up. And the bites, you could still see them, they were still there, they were rolling. But the annoying thing was, in the night as well, you'd hear the odd proper one come out right close in. So the other fish were getting in there. They knew there was feeding going on. So we knew there was a proper opportunity, putting in all this bait, fishing a bit different to what we had been doing. We knew we had something going. It was just sort of getting it right. And on the Monday morning, before I had to shoot off in the afternoon, I went to Horton and went on the ponds, basically. I wandered around and borrowed loads of bits of tackle because we're still using the light little 1 ounce running leads and small hooks and that, and we'd stop catching these stockies by Monday morning. So I went over there and I got various big boys tackle, big long shanked hooks and bigger leads, just a bit here and a bit there and a bit there. Came back with these pockets full of bait, tackle bits, sorry. And we came back and we sat there and we were tying up all different stupid rigs that were going to fool everything. And I was due to go that afternoon. I don't think I did in the end. I think I went on the Tuesday morning. I think I thought, oh, that can wait, you know. Anyway, we tied up all these rigs. Tench blokes was ridiculous. It was this big fly hook thing that we'd got, long shank, massive great thing, and he'd got the boilie tied right tight to the eye of it, and then a little short hook link and a massive great big lead. And anyway, we put them out, and Tench bloke started catching on this ridiculous fly hook rig. He had a couple of stockies that night, and in the morning I had to shoot off back to Crawley. So I got in the motor, shot off back to Crawley for just the day really. I was going to be back down later that afternoon, which didn't happen. Something else. I had some other sort of automotive disaster, and I didn't make it back until the next morning. Come down the next morning, as I've come in the Douglas Lane, I can see a sack hanging in the tree, and I know the sack's not coming out for the stockies. So I bumped across the grass and gone down there straight away. He's like, I've had one. No way. Yeah. He's had Malins at 38.12. Like I said, same old faces. Absolutely, he's over the moon with it. This is now his PB. Before it was the Pug at 36. Now he's upped his PB to 38.12. He's had it on the fly hook, and he's had it off this little hump down here. So it's not all stockies. So now it's getting a little bit more serious. I say he's proper chuffed with it, bouncing about. I've put my rods out, sat in next to him. I'm starting to think, you know, he's getting far more bites than I am. Although he's not having to go anywhere, but he's still getting more bites in the time I'm there. They're loving this little close hump. And as if to cement it, about an hour after I've got there, it's ripped off again, and he's hooked into another proper one, you know, and it's gone, and it's gone, and it's gone. It's gone out of the swim, it's gone through the weed, and it's just buried, absolutely buried. So we got the boat, decided to go out there. Now, at this time, the shootist had reclaimed his boat for a little while. I can't remember why, but he'd reclaimed it anyway. And all we had was my old orange inflatable thing, which was, it was just a disaster, this thing. It was just full of holes. It was crap. So anyway, we pumped this up, and you can hear it coming out as fast as it's going in. We pumped it up, and me and Tench bloke have gone, he ain't got to go far out to where we think this fish is. So out we gone. He's pulling like off the front of the boat. I'm right down the front. I'm occasionally getting the line saying, hold on. I'm getting the oar and breaking the weed apart. All I can see below me is an absolute carpet of Canadian pondweed. It's, rather than standing up, it's all folded over and it's sort of matted together. And you can see the line going through this carpet of weed. So I'm breaking open the hole where the line goes in and hand lining a bit. And if it starts moving, I let go and say go, and then pull it up. And a couple of times, a fish, you can see the fish has come up and out of the hole and then just gone straight back in. As soon as it's out, it's in. I can see it's a big long mirror. I think I know which one it is, especially by the way it's fighting. And it's roaring about in there, and it's going in and coming out and going in. And the boat's going down. The boat's going down at a rate of knots. At one stage, we had to leave the fish out there, open the bay alarm, come back to the shore, repump the boat, go back out there, and continue playing it. In fact, I think we did that twice. You had about a 10-minute lifespan of this boat going down, especially with two people in it. When an inflatable starts to go down, it comes up from the front and the back. So, you know, because you're the heaviest spot in the middle, and it was starting to rise up at the front and the back. It was in proper danger of shipping water and going. Third attempt, we're out there, and it's going down again. Next thing, I've heard a car or a van pull across the car park, and I've looked around. It's John Cross, Phil's mate. He's seen what's going on from wherever, the dredger or whatever, and he's come around to give a hand. Now, he's got nice gear, you know. So he's pulled open the side door, got out a nice big brand new shiny boat, pumped it up, electric pumped it up or whatever, proper bit of kit, and he's come out with our pump, plugged it into our boat. So then we've now got two boats side by side out in the Douglas Lane. Tench bloke's trying to play this fish out the weed. John Cross has got our foot pump, like bellows, like that, and he's pumping the boat back up, and we're going back up as he's playing this fish. But it did the trick. We stayed out there long enough to get it out of the weed, and it's come up, and sure enough, as it's come up towards the net, I thought it would be. It's Mary's mate. Beautiful, absolutely beautiful. It's come up, gone in the net, I think that was also £38. It might have been a couple of ounces more. Might have been 39, can't remember anyway. But basically 2 personal bests for Tench Bloke. It's just a shame that it's not for him because he hadn't caught them. But, you know, it's Mallin's and Mary's mate again. Mallin should have been called, which way would it work? Mary's mate should have been called Mallin's mate, because those two just loved each other and they fed together, you know, and historically that's the pair that come out. It's not Mary's mate, it's Mallin's mate. But he was over the moon. He didn't care what it was, you know. It was this huge, great big Wraysbury carp on his stupid fly hook rig. And we had weeks to go, you know. It was absolutely perfect. What a way to start. 2 weeks we ended up fishing in them 2 swims. We were just convinced that we were really, really onto something. But it didn't really pan out like that, to be honest. Tench Bloke had the brace. We had a lost count of the amount of stockies once we got the hang of catching them, which we didn't want to be, but we had stocky after stocky. I never hooked a proper fish in those 2 weeks until the day I decided I was done with it. I packed everything away. I was off on the move or whatever. Couldn't sit in the Route Nightmare any longer. We were both packing up to go. Left the rods out. Very, very last knockings. One of them's roared off. As soon as I picked it up, just thinking like stocky again, you know. As soon as I've hit it, what a proper one, you know. After all that time, everything else is packed away. And it's just gone. And in about 2 seconds, tips pulled back and the hook's pulled. And I thought that just about caps it off for me. You know, I am not suited to this sitting in one spot malarkey. You know, it's not me. It's not being very kind to me. I'm much better at moving about and finding fish and making use of an opportunity, and then doing it again and moving again. So I thought, I ain't even putting it back out there. I brought the other rod in, chucked it all in the boat, and we'd seen a lot of fish using probably the fish that we'd spooked off, using the main section of the lake out towards the sailing club in an area that you couldn't actually get to from anywhere on the lake. Well, sort of couldn't get to. I'd got a plan, and I was going to put this plan into operation. That was the next stage of the summer of adventure, but I'll tell you about that next time. So what we're going to do, we're going to wind down. I'm going to ping up the old book ad. So if you are after a copy of the book, the live link obviously is below, as always, in the description. Flick of the tail, yeah, there's only a finite amount left because we're getting towards the end of the run. And yeah, brings us nicely to the end. So I'll see you next time. Until then, stay whatever, safe, indoors, and hopefully it won't be too long. Will it? Can't be much longer, can it, before we're out there doing it. Anyway, stay safe. See you later.